This conversation with Hazel Lai made me realize that branding is not about looking polished. It's actually about being understood. We talk about branding, starting from scratch, networking as an introvert, and what it means to show up before everything feels polished. Hazel explains why branding is not just a logo, website, banner, or color palette. It's how people experience you. It's all the signals your business sends before anyone reads the detail. What I really appreciated was how Hazel made branding feel human rather than intimidating. We explored the difference between branding and marketing, why personal branding is different from business branding, and why niching down is not always the answer, and how small business owners can build connection without losing themselves. This conversation is about branding, yes, but it is also about identity, confidence, authenticity, visibility, and learning to build something while you're still figuring it out. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Hazel. So let's dive in. Okay, so welcome back to Vantage Point Conversations. I'm your host, Colin Parsons. So if you've been here before, you know the drill. But if you haven't, then basically I get to have amazing conversations with people all around the world, people that maybe I wouldn't have come into contact with in my old corporate days. And today, my guest is Hazel. Is it Hazel Lai? Lai? Is that the
Lie.
Lai? Perfect. So Hazel, same opening monologue. Everyone could just skip past the same thing that I say. I don't introduce my guests. It's not me being lazy. It's not that I don't want to read out a big bio, but I don't think I do a very good job. So for me, I'll just hand over to you. Take as long time, little time as you want. Just explain anything, everything, nothing, anything in between that you think you want people to know about you. And then we just dive into the conversation from there.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm Hazel. I started my studio actually only half a year ago, which is quite crazy considering, all that stuff. But yeah, I do branding. I call myself the branding fairy godmother. I usually have a little wand. Where I put it? I have no idea where I put it, but I usually bring like little fairy wand to my networking events. Anyways, yeah, I have my own studio. I do branding. I also do marketing and graphics on the side. Recently also picked up a website design job because I do that too. Kind of anything related to branding I'd help. My whole thing is basically about how branding is not marketing because a lot of people make that little confusion there is actually more business decision and business strategy. So I'm sure we'll dive into that later if we have time. So
Fantastic. I love it because there's two things that I'm really interested in this conversation. One, branding in itself, because I'd like to sort of dig a bit deeper into that because to be honest, I don't really understand, even when you were just saying about the difference between branding and marketing. Um, and having started my business, without a brand, I've got loads of questions to kind of understand maybe what I've done wrong, maybe what I should be thinking about, anything along those lines. Um, but also the fact that you've sort of started your studio, you said like 6 months ago, because that I speak to a lot of people. I'm fascinated by business. Branding is one of those things that seems, we should all have in some way. But you've started your own thing, and the lessons that you're learning. So, let's get into the branding first, and then we'll bring it back round to your business and what you're seeing, what the challenges are. So, let's just dive into that part of branding and marketing. They are different. How would I best understand the difference between those two?
hmm, I'd say the simplest way to put it, right, is you can't have marketing without branding, or technically you can, but it wouldn't be effective. The reason why a lot of people have to spend so much on marketing especially when it comes to small businesses or sole traders. They have to spend so much on marketing trying to push themselves out, um, because their branding is not clear enough for people to be automatically attracted. Branding is more of a connection in between the brand, the business, and the people who are perceiving the business. So it's almost like a hidden communication tool that a lot of smaller businesses don't realize they can utilize. Um, my main reason for trying to spread the word or having like specifically branding studio, creative studio gearing towards small businesses is because branding itself as a thing is so gate kept by the corporate world. If you think about it, you don't really hear about branding and branding strategy until you are looking to like bigger companies. It's because they understand the value, and a lot of times when a business grow, they will realize, oh shit, can I swear?
Yeah, you can do
Yeah.
exactly what you want on this, don't worry.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, we need a better branding because what our business is and what our brand looks like or what our brand feels like is not matching, and it's not attracting the right people. It's not getting the right people in the door unless we spend a lot on marketing.
Okay. So this is really interesting because I when I started this, so I kind of fell into uh, this world of LinkedIn Live. So I wanted to previously, so I got let go of my job, and I went through unemployment, and as part of that, they said, "Oh, they'll help." There's a program called Start Your Business, and I
Mm,
wanted to be a consultant that helped people, or help leaders connect with their people. So I come really from the corporate world. I personally see that this is a big area where leaders, managers, etc., aren't speaking the same language. They are, but they're not. They see things very differently, and that big disconnect and it is huge in companies. Anyway, I thought I would be a consultant, get a nice big fat day rate, and try and help people connect. And like, it came from a good place, but I also believe that it's something very powerful that could help companies really connect with their people, from people to their managers and leaders, etc., and the other way around. No one was really buying what I was selling, and I don't know if it's because the way that I was doing it.
mm,
I don't think I gave it a lot of emphasis and time. I felt that by me just saying the words, people go, "Oh, absolutely, that's exactly what I need in my life." And the reality is, I don't. First of all, I don't think I was doing a good job of it. I don't think the way that I was speaking about it was a great thing. Also, I don't necessarily know that leaders and management, etc., really see this as a problem that they want to put money and emphasis on. So, anyway, that didn't take off. But at the same time, because it wasn't taking off, I was doing a course and I was having some coaching for a career. I got so frustrated that I said that I would do. I went for a walk with my girlfriend and I said, "Oh, fuck it, I'm just going to do 2 LinkedIn lives a week." And with no niche, no. So at the beginning, I was very interested. I've always been interested about business, the mechanics behind it, how it works. Um, I always like those success stories. I just generally, I'm really rooting for those people that have built something, if I say from nothing, and and so I just started having these conversations, and so I didn't really have any such branding. I kind of put like a banner on my LinkedIn profile and tried to be a bit more consistent. I use the same photo on everything that I can, because it was a photo taken by an ex-family member, and I quite liked it. And I thought, oh, I don't have to pay anyone for any fancy photo shoot. Um, and when you're starting, I think money is one of those things that you consider and you go, okay. Um, and what I've seen also with a lot of businesses is that they feel that they need to. I see this in solopreneurs. They put
Mhm.
a lot of emphasis on things like a website, um, business cards, um, and a few other things before they actually get started. And now I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but I'm just trying to get all of my the stuff
No,
out.
that's how it
So
works.
with all of this, I've had to change my banner a few times on LinkedIn. I've never gone down the website route. The challenge for me is that I don't really know how to represent myself in terms of a brand.
Mhm.
I didn't, and it seemed one of those things that you kind of felt that you needed to do first before people would take you seriously, but you don't really know what your brand is. I didn't know what it was. Now, I'm going to point to this thing behind me, this windmill. Now,
Mhm.
uh, loads of people ask me this. I can't even remember if we had the conversation about it. But what happens is before I have these lives, I have a conversation like we did just to see if someone's comfortable to do a live with me. Most of the time, people go, "Oh, that's funny." Like this is a child's windmill that normally most kids have had as a kid. You probably find it on a beach or in a garden somewhere. I got it from my
Right.
kids. We went to this garden center. They really liked it. I thought, oh, and I brought it. I was going to put it outside, and they stuffed it in the back of the sofa. And on one of my calls, I forgot that it was there. I think I was rushing, and then someone pointed it out, and I was like, yeah, yeah. And then I was like, oh, and I don't see it as part of my brand, but I just see it as a talking point. But effectively, when you see videos of me, I generally put it up. If it's not there, I will put it up deliberately so it's part of something to look at. So in all of that, there's common things that you see, something that I've got wrong, like which comes first? Do you have to work out what your brand is? And I never saw myself as creative. And I see like branding as very creative, like a very creative job. But I think I'm very creative in many other ways. Yet with branding, styles, etc., I'm a bit lost. So what what am I getting wrong? What have I got right? What advice would you give me or anyone else just starting out or struggling with all of this?
I'd say I won't say you're doing anything wrong. It's not really a mistake per se. I think it's just no one really, told us how to start a business. And if you think about it, all like when it comes to the idea of starting a business or having a business, having a website, having a business card, as you say, is basically what everyone thinks is one of the mandatory things. Um, but if you think about it, it's less about the physical items themselves. The business cards, the websites, the logo, they actually represent what you or your business is. When we're talking about branding, there's two different types, personal branding and business branding. So for you, it'd be more personal branding side of things. Um, what I say is personal branding and business branding are very different. I know you say like you're not like a creative when it comes to that sort of thing. Business branding and personal branding are both more strategy focused than you think. For example, you having that windmill there, like, is a constant signal, be it accidental, it's still a constant signal that, oh, this is part of what I am now. It doesn't matter if it's like on purpose. Branding is how people see you. You have to like think from within. Like, that sounds so woo woo, but you have to think from within. But branding is not about what you think you're presenting, is about what people think you're presenting. So it doesn't matter if you think, oh, this is not exactly what I think it is. You have to think more on what it says about you than it does how it happened, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I usually do when it comes to how I help my clients with branding and stuff like that is a lot of work of reflection, not just on what the business is, but also on what the customers are seeing. The reason why branding is so important is because your business is one thing. It can be as good as it can be, but if what you're showing your clients or customers aren't on par with that, they're gonna think you're right here. It doesn't matter. No matter how good you are, they're gonna still think you're here.
Oh, wow.
So, fine. So yeah, it's um a lot of times is about how people see you, and what I do or how I help people is basically to help them reflect on how they want people to see them. So when it comes to, for example, you, personal branding, you said you kind of start, and it's kind of similar with a lot of other people. You start before you know what you want your brand to be. And because of that, you have to change things so many times. Obviously, when you first start out, and if you're doing everything by yourself, is not as much of a cost. But when you think about it in more of a small business term, the logo, the name, like paying for the legal fees whatsoever for like getting the name itself, um, and like all the stuff you print, all those stuff, like leaflets, all that jazz, you have to pay for them to be printed, to be made, to be designed. If you're not sure about your branding at first and you're just going like, oh, I think that'll do, and you use them, and then you realize the ROI is very low because it's not how, like, it's not presenting the way you want your business to be presented, then that's a lost amount of money
Mm.
that that can be solved by just thinking more about what branding is in the first place. And um, again, it's something that no one really taught you about when it comes to business. So a lot of small businesses and sole traders and personal brands like you kind of missed that opportunity of starting, as I always say, stage zero, basically finding your own values, making sure your values and your business values are aligned. Because let's be honest, most people find it hard to separate themselves from their businesses, and making sure you're finding like all those things aligning with the people you actually want to work with and the people you actually want to attract, and making sure all those stuff are properly presented in a way in both psychologically, a little tip, um people uh people first impressions are made within a second, less than a second, technically like 100 millisecond, so 1/10 of a second, I think. So what you have to present yourself as isn't like a long paragraph of what you are. Even like we're talking about personal brand here. It's not like reading a whole paragraph what you are about or what you do. It's more you come out and people will be like, "Oh, that's what they do," because people will make that assumption no matter what you say.
Okay. Is that is that more an image-based thing rather than a word thing? So, 'cause uh, I'm just thinking about my banner on, my LinkedIn, and a while I can't remember changing it in a while because again, I think there's a point where you're finding your feet and you're sort of pivoting. You don't like, especially when you're starting out. And I love the fact that you go, okay, and until you kind of know, putting money into a logo, etc., it is a bit of a waste. You kind of need to find. I guess there's maybe a sweet spot, but I guess there's not it's not day 100 that you then have to do it. I guess it's when things start to click or make a bit more sense, and maybe you're getting feedback or the type of clients become obvious to you or something like that. But I the 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 things that I've struggled with is, you know, my my branding is a bit outdated now, and it is still slightly aligned um, to that initial consultancy idea. And I was thinking about changing it the other day, and and then there's something scared me. I was like, but so when I had these initial conversations, just the back and forth conversations on messages on LinkedIn, quite a few people have within my about section. I say this thing about zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. A lot of people have referenced that as a connection, and I was like, oh. And so then I think to myself, oh, um, is that something I should keep? Because it's been one of those things. But I was like, what do I change? What do I keep? And then part of me goes, well, that's a bit outdated now. Should I change it? And then I think, oh, if you're just changing, you're like a chameleon, like a chameleon, just every. And so then I'm a bit unsure. How long should you stick with something and test it? How long, is it just tweaks or you should evolve? And I'm very much like a bright colors person. I love color. It's really something. But then when you look at my branding and there's black and there's like a mustardy yellow type color,
Mm.
and yet that seems to have worked. So there's doubts and question marks around all of that. So yeah, pick apart any of those, anything you think I should be paying attention to. Is it and as a natural overthinker, it's just crazy, and
Same.
but it can be very daunting to know, okay, this is not quite correct. And it is it now this point where I should be focusing more on that? Should I, because I like bold colors, is that something I should have on my logo? Because I've tried doing bold colors and then I've tried to do all of this myself. And it takes me down a rabbit hole of just like combinations. I was doing an orange and a pink at one point together, and I was and then this perfectionist side sinks in, and with it's like a lot of self-editing, so I get lost quite easily in all of this. So yeah, any parts you want
Oh,
to pick up on that?
yeah, I'm really bad when it comes to self-editing as well. I can tell you, my website, I've been spending ages on it when I first started. Um, it, I totally get what you mean because I'm exactly the same when it comes to going down rabbit holes when, you're doing your own thing because you kind of want to get it right as much as possible. And the perfectionist. But yeah, when you say it's outdated, do you mean it's outdated because it no longer fits what you want it to be like, or is it outdated because some other reason?
I think some of the wording, I don't, you know, I I've basically built this amazing machine of doing LinkedIn lives, having these amazing conversations. They've grown from 2 a week to 3 a week. I've been doing it. I don't even know how long now. I'm going to say nearly a year. I think, I've enjoyed it so much that time's just shot by. And so, um, I don't think there's anything in there that talks about LinkedIn lives, which is 99% of the thing that I do. Why I'm hesitant is because I think I also want to market to everybody. And
Mm,
I struggle with this whole niche idea. Um, and I've actually heard recently, so ever since I've thought about business, everyone says, right, pick your niche, find the perfect avatar of the person that you want. Um, And I've tried that many times in little businesses that I started to get off the ground previously. And the problem is, as an overthinker, you go, oh, yeah, it's this type of person. It's this 45-year-old man who's got a BMW who plays golf and like this stuff. And you go, and in reality, I've never had a conversation with any client that has a BMW, like plays golf or any of those things. And it, so I just, I don't quite know what I'm doing. And I think, you know, I said about the self-editing and you said the same thing. I think it's so much easier for someone to look from the outside and go, this is this, and this, rather than me have no idea and just keep circling around going, oh, okay, yeah, I like this. It's strange how our mood and emotions can play a part, because you go, oh yeah, today it's sunshiny, it's great, yeah. And then tomorrow, like I've done something, and then like tomorrow is a bit rainy or whatever, and you go, oh yeah, I don't like it. And so I'm not quite sure what it is that I need to advertise. And with these LinkedIn Lives, it was supposed to be about business and people, and it still loosely is, but it's really about people. And I don't know what that's evolving into. And I need to somehow generate money. And I've got ideas, people explain stuff, and nothing's really landed at this point in time. And I'm okay with that. I like the experimenting and doing all of that stuff. But I don't know what that's supposed to look like. I've got no idea. And then I think, why would I then go and change my banner when I'm still unclear? And so
Mm.
is that a case that I need to sit down and give it focus, which I don't really have a lot of time to do? But then I guess people are clicking on your banner and looking at your profile and understanding you a bit more. But is that really something that's happening? Or my focus is these lives? I mean, you look at my features section, you've got all of my lives that I've ever done. But there is this disparity between my about section. There's no real reference of what that is. So yeah, again, you can even tell by my thought process that I'm still wildly all over the place. Do those things all need to be aligned? Do I need to find a niche? Do I need to just be one thing? Because I really struggle just being one thing. And I heard recently you don't have to be. And then I realized, like people were saying, find your niche of who you're talking to. And then I realized that I am my niche. I am the guy that is having conversations randomly about different things. You know, this is the first one I've ever talked about branding. You know, I've been doing it nearly a year. So, and I'm really interested in it. And my curiosity is the kind of niche. I'm happy to have any conversation about anything as long as it makes sense and it's enjoyable. That's kind of the parameters of it. So what's your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'd say y- I personally, I don't think a lot of people would agree with me, especially when it comes to marketing and branding people. But I don't believe in niche. Like when it comes to business, be it personal brand or brand, I don't believe in niche because yeah, you're bracketing yourself in a very specific direction, and that's not what everyone wants. I mean, obviously, some people they're like, I need this, and that's what I want. They're very clear on it. Great for you. But for example, like I'll use myself as an example. When I first work on my website, when I first start the business, I was not focused on branding. I was not like, ooh, I'm gonna do branding and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I was basically just trying to have a creative studio that do it all, that does it all, and pick whatever job I want to pick because it's about me. Let's be honest. Um, if you're a person who's passionate about your business, be it a personal brand, be it a business brand, it's more about you because you started it to fulfill your own need or your own wants. And for example, for you, like it's a personal brand, and it matters a lot more on how you are interacting with people and how you are as a person, because all this is for you. And yeah, you're right. You're your niche. You yourself as your niche, because the target goal here is not to like earn as much money from a specific target audience as possible. You said you did um is what we called like target profiling, like creating like a character, what they drive, what they are like, personality, how old they are, stuff like that. That's a very common practice in marketing as well as branding, because if you have an ideal customer, be it one, be it three different groups, it's easier to put yourself in there and understand how they think and what would fit best for them. So it's very common practice. I do it too, but not for my own studio. Just because when it comes to business branding, that would be very useful. That's how you narrow down your various marketing tactics. That's how you narrow down whether you should or should not pursue specific routes of marketing or specific routes of branding. But if it's a personal branding, especially when it's more from your own point of view and more from your passion, is another thing that's very common in small businesses and sole traders, is more about their passion than it is well, it's their passion in earning from being able to do what they like than it is having a goal and earning from that specific thing itself. So it's two very different things. And if you're focusing too hard on, back to niches, like focusing too hard on what my niche is, who my very targeted target audience is, then you would lose yourself. You will lose your values of what you originally want, and your business will not go, because your business can't go without you, and your business can't be stable if you can't connect with your business on like in the first place, because people can tell. Like a person, like customers, people can have, a bullshit radar, right? They can tell when a person is not authentic. They can tell when a business is not authentic. And a lot of people don't realize that, mostly because we're so fogged up by all the what you're supposed to do, what's the best way to do things, that we forget that we're selling to people. We're not selling to, target audiences, because your target audiences are still people. They're not a profile. That's If you're focusing on that profile alone, then all you're going to sell to is that profile. For example, you're saying you don't put anything about LinkedIn Live in your profile. That's why you think it's a little, you know, what's the word? Okay. That's a little, ow,
So for me, it's a little outdated.
outdated. Yes. Um, so that's a well, not disconnection. Like that's a little bit of a gap there. I like using the word gap a lot. There's the gap of what you want to present as and what you are presenting. And you're worried if you close that gap that people would be like, oh, that's the only thing it is.
Mm.
So how, as a branding person, how you navigate this is plain and simple. It's just, we can still close the gap, but instead of closing the gap and not having the gap, we can have a bridge. Sometimes the gap is there so you can catch other things. For example, if I'm honest, if you come to me, like when you approach me, if I know that you're focusing on like LinkedIn Live and LinkedIn Live only, which you don't, um, then I would be quite hesitant, because I'm not the type to actually do stuff like this usually. And I would have this preconceived notion of what LinkedIn Live. I don't want to kill you, please go. What LinkedIn Live would be, and how it's gonna come out, and I might be like quite hesitant when it comes to. I'm sorry, very distracted by the fly. When it comes to even saying yes to the LinkedIn Live. I might still chat with you, but I might be like, mm, just because I didn't really get to chat with you before I already know that you want to do LinkedIn lives, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So again, it's how a person see your brand, or even if it's your personal brand. And when I say instead of closing that gap, you can build a bridge, which you kind of already have if you think about it. Your bridge is showcasing your LinkedIn lives on your profile, having the post about your LinkedIn lives, bringing it back to first impressions, because you did ask would people like look at your profile and think that's all it is, right? The reason why we want to have that bridge instead of the gap is if you close the gap, people will see your profile. Most people don't read within the first 1/10 of a second because you can't. But your brain can take up all that information subconsciously. There's various psychology stuff here. Your brain subconsciously take all that information in and like basically have like a little essay in your head saying this is what it is, this is what they do, and the essay is written not just based on the facts that you see, but also the history you have in your brain and all your previous experiences. So if you focus too hard on your profile, if we're talking about, helping you out with your LinkedIn profile specifically, if you focus too hard on the fact that you do LinkedIn lives, yes, you are going to lose people that aren't as open to LinkedIn live like me before they meet you. But because you're so focused on people, I mean, yeah, you're focused on people and you can see it through the profile. People would have a sense of connection before they're like, this is about LinkedIn lives and like putting myself in front of a camera. So if you're talking about color wise, let's move on from that. We're talking about color wise. Why does like the dark gray, black, and orange work so well? If you think about it, those colors are almost, I'd say, very podcasty colors, ironically, even though you didn't start out as podcasts. Because darker colors, like the dark gray and black, a lot of times you link it to studios. And orange is a very energetic color. A lot of times orange is about energy, conversations. So people kind of, and let's be honest, quite a lot of podcasts also use similar colors when it comes to like banners and stuff. So it kind of helped you that way.
Yeah.
So
It-
again, it's not about what you think it means, it's about what people is already exposed to.
Yeah. It's you said so much in that I love, and I'd never even thought that actually I could by being very specific and just saying that I did lives that would actually put people off. Um, because we're almost taught that that's the thing that you should do, right? It's like, okay, just advertise the thing that you do. But, you know, like you said, that would have maybe put you off. And yet here you are, right? We're having this conversation. And I, it's very strange. So, um, a lot of people come and I have these initial conversations, as I just said, and they're a bit hesitant to put themselves on a live. Um, I think there's something in most of those people that's like this little thing that says, "Yeah, do it, just do it." But it's not the big voice that's shouting out; it's the thing that says, "Yeah, it'd be good." And I think within that initial conversation that I have with people, most people are really assessing, okay, am I going to be safe with Colin? What's this going to be? Is it going to be some grilling? Am I going to feel okay to do it? But I wouldn't even have got to that initial conversation had I have just been like LinkedIn, all this. And so that's very interesting about how that is. And I never thought, because I thought I should lean more into it. But also, when you were talking, you were saying about your values, or like how we are and we bring our values. And I'm interested in many things. So the other day, again, I'm trying to turn this into a business in the way that I can help people. And one of the things I'm obsessed about is trying to make things better in terms of business. I've done it with myself. You start out a bit scrappy, you don't know what you don't know, and you start to build. Then like painful things pop up, like, okay, my time, my energy, a list of to-dos. And I like looking at that and sort of saying, well, how do I actually make this better? And then I thought to myself, oh, I could help other people do that. And so then my brain goes, oh, maybe that's my job. Maybe that's the thing that I'm doing. But then I have these lives and I go, oh no, I love these. These are like, these are the thing. And so, I think that's why I struggle. And, you know, but we have this expression, I don't know if you know it, it's jack of all trades,
Mm,
master of none.
yeah.
And that was kind of seen almost as a bad thing or a negative thing when I was growing up. I've misinterpreted that saying, but it was basically, you know, a little bit about everything, but no one's going to call you to build a house because you can't build a house. You might be able to fix a brick, but you can't fix the whole house. And so I've always carried this negative connotation with that I'm interested in all these different things. And especially when that translates into the world of business, because you're not known for one thing. And so I've been on many courses where they really push you into like, this is the thing, this is how you need to do it. And especially, I joined a course ages ago and it was a really good course. I'm not trying to beat up on the course, but one of the first gateways or the milestones that you had to go through was pick your niche. And the way to get people interested in your niche was that people want, to improve their life. Normally, one of those things is about money, and it was like, yeah, you need to make them a promise that they could, get a pay rise. But I never felt that I could do that. But every aspect, every way that I tried to think about my business, they would always funnel it back to get people interested in what you're doing. You need to transform them and put some money emphasis, as in, you know, now you're going to earn this and this and this. And I've really struggled with that. I am absolutely in with money. I've actually had to do some inner work around money because I feel that exchange for my services was always for free and I don't want to charge money. I feel awkward about it. But
That problem as well.
but I'm changing that because I realized it's like a mental block or some stuff in my past that
Mm.
I'm getting over, and I'm doing really well. I'm on my way for sure. Um, but I realized that my values is such an important part, and a lot of what that course was telling me was to almost cut out part of my values, and then it feels like cutting off your arm, or you're trying to present yourself in a way that really didn't feel aligned. And for me, on this journey, doing these lives, this is exactly who I am. And someone once referenced, and they said, I can imagine that you are the exact same person off camera as you are on. Yep, 100%. Like there is no difference. I might be a bit more outgoing on the camera just because I think that's obviously, if I just came up and didn't say anything, most of the time I like to be quiet and introverted, but I like to do this. This is a good thing. It sort of scratches an itch in terms of, okay, I get to present and I feel good and I get to test myself and everything like that. So again, a lot of words I know I've said, but I feel so relieved that you don't have to just sort of squeeze yourself down to this two things and that's who you are. Absolutely, if that works for you, I understand what you're saying. Go for it, lean into it. But you can be other things. I just So if someone was to come to me and they asked me, okay, how do you do LinkedIn Lives, and they wanted some coaching or whatever, um, I'm more than happy to do that. But I can also go, well, and they're going, yeah, I'm struggling a bit with my business or something. I go, oh, we could jump into that. I'd be as interested to help someone do that. But at what stage do you think diluting of what I do and what I'm interested in makes sense? Because I can understand too narrow is too much for me, but is too wide too bad as well?
That's the thing. Obviously it's a balance act, but if you think about it, um, your original plan of being a business coach-ish type of person and what you're doing right now, they have a common value of communication and seeing people for who they are. So without really thinking too much of a direction, you kind of already have a direction.
Okay.
A lot
And
of times people don't realize that, but like trying to force yourself towards one way or the other is really just not how things work because you as a person, I think a lot of the worries when it comes to jack of all trades situation, as well as what you said about the business workshop thing, where they like, oh, this is how you do things. You have to find a niche and you have to tell people that you're going to help them with this and that. It doesn't stand. It used to stand, but it doesn't stand as well anymore these days, I'd say, if you think about it. Um, just because people in society is a lot more accepting when it comes to understanding the fact that people are three-dimensional. Society is starting to have a lot more of a merge in between business and personal life and social life, to the point where if you try to tell people that this is what you're going to get without giving them an emotional support or connection, people are going to be kind of turned off by it. And it's not just like younger generations, it's older generations as well. Mostly because we were for quite a while, we were so focused on advancements, we were so focused on getting everything as effective and efficient as possible. We are now in an age where people are looking to be more connected because ironically, we're so connected, chronically connected, that we're looking to have something deeper than just, you know, oh, we'll help you with this, oh, we'll help you with that. Is the reason why personal branding is starting to become more popular these days compared to business branding. And it's the same thing when it comes to, you know, finding what you want to do. And you said you're worried, like, well, you asked if there would be a point where you're doing too much of everything and not having something that, kind of identifies you.
Hmm.
That's the main word, identify, like identification. It's not just from you, it's also from other people. So the balance comes from what everything, like all the stuff you do, brings back to that point of your values, what you believe in, all that stuff again. But it's also about making sure that everything you do does actually have that little bit linked to it. For example, if you have like 10 different services, right? You can have a business that that has like 10 different services. I've seen plenty of businesses with like 20 services. But it's whether those like services and or products actually links to what you do. For example, I don't know if it's or like giving examples. For example, McDonald's, whatever. Um, they used to do this thing where they just sell fast food burgers and like meals because that's their thing. If you ask someone like 20, 30 years ago what McDonald's sells burgers, but if you ask someone right now what McDonald's sells, they sell fast food, and that's a bigger quote of items than just burgers. So it's kind of similar. If you have many different services, you want to help people in different aspects of their life or aspects of their business. Do those services come back to the same core or belong in the same group at least? If so, then it's usually fine because what people look for is that connection from you and the business. What people look for is how those things can benefit from them, but also how those things connect to them and their identity. This is what branding a lot of times is about. This is why it's so strategic because people always crave identity, be it a social connection, be it a community. It's all about identity because that's one of the most important things we crave as a human being, know who we are. And even for people who don't really have an identity, for example, people who trace trends for the sake of trends, their identity is trendy. That's still an identity. Like if you think about it, they don't have an identity because all they do is chase trends. But their identity in their head or in their community is being trendy at whatever cost. So if you're worried about having too many services or having just one service, that like whichever side, as long as everything brings down to the core, it's the same exact identity that reflects you, I'd say authentically, or at least to some degree authentically, then people would buy. People would come to you just because they feel the connection and they feel that you're reflecting what they want or aim to be.
You've made me feel so much more calmer about my business because I yeah, it's strange because I think maybe sometimes I get too focused on, okay, that's that thing. And like, that's that. So helping people with their business, but also doing LinkedIn lives, you would think, well, I often do, okay, what's that? And I go into the detail of it. But if you do take a step back, I can see that there's common threads. And thank you for pulling out the word communication, because I don't know if that's anywhere on my banner, but communication, I worked with this career coach, lady called Marina. And she did this profiling about me, and it was more than like these 16 personalities. It was quite in depth. And I, one of my top talent or skill or strength is communication. And I never realized it because I always thought that, I've got an older brother and he's a storyteller. He can weave a story. It's amazing. And like around the dinner table, you're like, yeah, yeah. And he's just the way he does it. And so I've always sat on the edge of that, being very much in awe of what he does and how he can capture my family. And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I've never seen myself as someone around communication. I've always seen communication as vital, business, relationships, everything, you name it. It's one of those things that I I think we get wrong so much. We either over communicate, or it's not over communicating, we're communicating the wrong things, I generally believe. But this connection is for me about communication and how we are. And I I don't think I've referenced it anywhere in my profile or anything like that, which is very odd when I come to think about it. So maybe we should have an offline conversation to see how we get there. But I I feel so much more relieved because again, I started all of this and I love the internet and I dislike it in equal measure, because
Oh, yeah, definitely.
you can yeah, you can go and search something, and uh, there's a bit of advice, and directly under that there's the opposite advice.
Mm,
And when you feel lost, or not, yeah, lost, when you're starting a business and you don't know anything, people, I've watched a lot of people say, yeah, they've built stuff, and you go, oh, that's great. But I get lost in that whole, well, where do I fit between that answer and that answer? And I believe a lot of it comes down to intuition. And I believe we know a lot more about ourselves than we um, actually allow ourselves, if we just paid a bit more attention to who we are. But also, I think we try to fit into these systems, these ways of being, you know, people will sell you, this is your framework. And I've, I feel that there is a use in frameworks. I feel that there's like a
yeah.
structure, but for me, it's not. Oftentimes that becomes too rigid. It's like, okay, if you want to be a successful business, you have to do all of these.
Mm,
But oftentimes within there, you don't allow for the personality, you don't allow for the person. It becomes too restrictive because, they want you to go through that system and you get spat out, and that you're this shiny version almost of that person giving you that course. Along the way, what I've found, where most of my joy comes from, is that I'm not really following a framework, but I'm doing these things in sort of isolation and really bringing myself out. And that's not something. I've always been one of those people that didn't really like to sort of show myself too much, because I thought it was like I was going to get bullied, or, a
mm,
whole load of other things. So I just always played it safe. Now, in this world of doing what I'm doing, I just show more of my personality. It didn't happen day one. There's over 100 of these conversations now, and more of it comes out. And the more I just build on it, and more I trust and lean into myself. But at the same time, I still am restricted. It's not always immediately obvious that you're being constrained. You think you enter into doing something, and that, okay, I'm just going to do this. But if you're not careful, if you're not self-aware enough, and you go, right, I'm going to do that, you can lose yourself in
mhm,
that, if that makes sense. And so what I loved about what you said is that, people do want that connection. They do, um, they do want to be part of that community. They want something more than just ABC. ABC worked before. And I remember, um, when I started this, a good friend said, oh, you should make these podcasts like 20 minutes long, question answer, and then bam, because the attention is a premium. And I fully understood that. I fully understood it. And their guidance was based on their world. But something told me, just carry on with these conversations, an hour, hour 20 sometimes. And I'm really happy with them,
mm,
because for me, thought takes a while. Like
mm.
exploring that, it's not. If I came here with a list of questions and I just went, all right, Hazel, question, question, question. My goal is not to drain you of every drop of information. It's to understand who you are, how you are, because in that process, there's so much wisdom, but there's also personality that comes out. And you know, I knew you a little bit before this conversation, but now I'm like, yeah, she really gets it. She understands the psychology, and I get to see your thinking come out. Not just, if I asked you a question, you just gave me the answer. I've said this before to people. It's like mathematics, if you just give the answer, you might get a point, but actually understanding the working out really is helpful for people to
Mhm,
understand how you got there. Also, if something doesn't quite land, you can understand where you're missing something. And I feel that there's such a use in understanding all of that in a long form conversation. So, and I've just stuck to my guns because I like it. I generally feel that my guests enjoy it as well. There's no rush. There's no, okay, got to get through it, got to get through it. I don't go more than an hour 20 because I think that's a nice optimum time also for my own energy. But I love the fact now we're moving to this space where that, I want to say, perfectionism isn't the thing anymore, because we seem to have, that was the thing. Follow this course, perfection, 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 perfection. Don't deviate from this and it will be perfect. And I don't think that's what people want. And I started all of this. This is my apartment. This is my lounge. This TV behind the sofa. And I wrestled with the idea, daydreaming. Oh, okay. If this was really successful and it was sponsored some way, would I do a studio? I don't know, because I think that's part of the brand.
Mm,
Like you said, like, I think people are a lot more tolerant, especially since COVID, people were working from home, etc. That, this is life. We talked about it. Maybe if the doorbell rings, maybe I have to go and answer it. I don't do that from a sloppy, lazy perspective. I put thought in, okay, if the phone rings, the phone's in the other room, so it wouldn't disturb naturally. But if my mum rings and there's an emergency, I'm going to go and get it.
mm,
And all of that for me shows real life. I'm professional in what I do. I show up, I do all of these things, but not to the point of perfectionism, because I think behind perfectionism, it is masking something quite fake. We're trying to perceive something, it has to be this way. And I really do believe that people would much rather see me hear this than a polished version of it. I think, and again, I'm only going to speak about banks because um, that's where I did a lot of my
mm,
corporate work. But a lot of mistrust happened with banks, especially in the financial crisis. This polished, perfect exterior, I don't think people buy it anymore. Yes, they still need to put their money there, but they are much more wiser. They've seen behind the curtain, not all of it, but, oh, okay, it's not actually reality. A company like Lehman's that was saying, yes, we're amazing, amazing, took one thing, and well, it wasn't one thing, it was a series of things, but it was that house of cards that, take that one thing away. And so I don't think we're looking for that. And I don't know if I'm just trying to make myself feel better about the journey that I've been on and that I'm on. But
no, definitely not.
yeah, do you see it continuing to move that way? And I don't want it to get sloppy. I don't want it to get um, messy.
Oh, yeah,
But I feel that there's a lot more connection in the real life side of things.
yeah. Um, there's quite a few different reasons behind it. Obviously, part of it is what you said, people kind of seeing behind the curtain, because one, information is so abundant these days. Everyone can kind of like do a quick search and like, oh, that's not what it looks like. So perfection kind of is now more of a signal for a lack of honesty and transparency. So that's one. Two, again, we're so tired of efficiency. We're so tired of perfection. And now that AI is more prominent, the sense of perfection just no longer feels human. I mean, it's not human in the first place. Humans aren't perfect. And three, again, because we're so chronically online, information is is available everywhere. People no longer look for something that they can fully rely on. Like when it comes to professionalism and information, they look for people who they feel more comfortable with. And a lot of times, like authenticity is what's winning these days. Um, oh, we did say we're going to chat about like, being an introvert and going to networking events. I can use myself as an example. What it's very similar to you. I'd say I'm very similar to you. It took me quite a while to actually show my authentic self when it comes to both business and when I was being employed. Well, obviously, it's harder when I'm being employed. I've always been a type that wants to be well, can't help but be myself. That's how I'll say it. And when I first tried networking, I was obviously I'm an introvert, so I try to get to that standard of what people think would be, an acceptable idea of what a professional should be. But partly because I just can't help it and be myself. The other part is I kind of realize people don't look for that anymore. Like a lot of times, as you said, people are saying, "Oh, you should be like this, you should be like that." There's a set like structure. Structure helps you achieve things in a more practical way, but structure alone without connection, without authenticity is just a hollow structure. You still have to fill those things in. Think of it like a little bit like a building. You have the scaffolding. The scaffolding is the structure. If you don't fill it with all the other stuff that, supports the structure and also creates the building itself, then all you have is a scaffolding. One blow and it's gonna be like whoosh, it's gone. And it's not a building, it's just a scaffolding. And bring it back to branding. That is why so many people kind of realize they need a proper branding after their business starts getting more successful or getting more business because they realize what they had was a scaffolding, which people will use to climb whatsoever. And it does start a business up. But when you don't have the actual materials that builds the building, all you have is scaffolding, and scaffoldings are everywhere. People can't look at you and go, "Ooh, this is a pretty building," or "Wow, this is a very techy building." Like architecture, there's so many different vibes. And it's the same when it comes to people, when it comes to branding, when it comes to business.
Yeah, I love the analogy. That's amazing because we never really think about things like that with the structure and the support and that. And let's just go back to this introverted part of you. And it is strange because I kind of I forgot. I know that we talked before, and you are quite introverted, but I think this is often the case. We think when we hear something, we assume like introvert, okay, is not going to be able to talk, but we've been talking for an hour and 7 minutes so far. But it's, I think given the right space, the right structure, the right support
Mm.
around them, like, can be the most beautiful buildings, the most idealistic thing. And it's this, and it's really clever. So, but in order to do that, how did you start as an introvert to network? Was that super uncomfortable in the beginning, or did you start small and just build from the base up? What was your approach?
Like, as I said, I was an overthinker, just like you. So when I first joined networking, I was doing my best to like just find the perfect networking group that I can join that I think would be small enough for me to not feel too in the spotlight. Well, not feel overwhelmed, but still give me some opportunity to talk to people. And I have to be honest, I booked it and I didn't make it for 2 whole months. And I have to be like, "I'm sorry, I can't make it. I'll come next month." And then the next month came and I got sick and I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm so sorry." And it's that. But then it's partly because of that. The third time, like, I have to go. This is too embarrassing. So I kind of like just pushed myself out there, like, and I still remember how nervous I was. I think partly because of how I was brought up, as well as the fact that I was in like public speaking groups and like debate groups. I kind of easily put on this mask that like just, doesn't make me feel that scared in the moment. I even took one of the CBD drink things.
Yeah.
Like before I went, I even took one of those because like I was shivering And it's basically just various things, trying my best to keep myself calm. And when I was there, because of how I was taught and how I was brought up, it just like a switch, and like I'm just like normal person. But um it drained me so hard. I still remember the first time when I had to head home right away because I was so drained. I was so tired, even though all I did was stood there and, talk to a few people. It was very helpful that people in that group are very, very, very friendly and nice. And I think we talked about this last time. It's really practice.
Mm.
The first time you really have to basically really just force yourself and shut up. Force yourself, and I know that's what everyone said, and I hate that I'm saying the same exact thing as everyone else, but it's really that push down to like a cliff and then realize, oh, you can fly. But it still drains me. Like, 'cause I'm still an introvert. It still gets me very tired having to go out all the time. Not as much these days because I'm trying my best to balance internal, external work and stuff. That's very important as an introvert. But I'd say realizing like two things internally is being myself and being authentic to myself and not having to put on a mask and pretend who I am, like pretend to be professional. Well, I'm still professional, but like being able to express myself as who I am. Like for example, makeup, like dark lips. Not everyone. Let's be honest, it's not a normal thing to go to a networking event or a professional event with black lips, but uh, it helps me feel better. And because I feel more in touch with who I am and my authenticity and what I really feel like I should be, it kind of have a little bit more of a calm to the chaos. And the other side is once you put yourself out there authentically as yourself without that much of a filter, because obviously, let's be honest, you still need a filter, but like without like a solid filter,
Mm.
if you're still letting yourself do what you like to do and show yourself as who you are, people will see that and people find that's what I recently learned. People find authenticity very, very attractive and very refreshing. I think partly because again, it's something that we crave these days. We're so used to corporate world. We're so used to professionalism and perfectionism. Perfectionism? Perfect. Like, yeah, that people kind of find unapologetically authentic people very refreshing. And because of that, and because I can be myself, it's kind of helping me come out of my shell a lot more. I think when it comes to introverts, it's not that we don't like talking to people. It's not that we don't communicate with people. How I see it is extroverts communicate outwards, introverts communicate inwards. And we tend to prefer conversations that are more on the side of understanding what the other person is and how we can connect instead of, oh, what did you do? And how are things? And stuff like that. Because we see people as more of a connection point than just another connection. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think when there's a healthy and safe environment, or even just a friendly environment, introverts tend to feel a lot more comfortable. And when you feel comfortable in your own skin, you kind of just naturally have this glow. And that's kind of how it happened, I'd say, when it comes to networking for me.
Do you Do you still struggle with it, or is it less of a thing? How do you see it in your world?
It's a lot less of a problem. Obviously, it still drains me because there's so much, and um, it's still tiring because I still have to put myself out there, and even though I'm in touch with myself, there's still, a filter because the amount of random noises I make at home, that's not professional, and um, so it's still tiring and it's still draining to some degree. But I think there's a little bit of switch in how I see networking. I think we've talked about this last time we chat. Is now a lot less about going out, meeting people, and widening my connection, and a lot more just about hearing about people's stories and learning new things. Because to me, learning new things is just a little above, all the other stuff about being an introvert. And that kind of like makes it a little easier and a little more bearable. And like it is so far when it comes to networking, one of the most amazing things I think is still just finding out how people figure their life and their business out. And like, it's kind of similar to what you're doing. It's just like physical versus virtual. And it's just amazing to see people being passionate about what they do. And that like kind of like makes me a little more hopeful about society.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a great networker, but I live in Luxembourg, and a big part of this world is finance, etc. And I don't, and so there's a lot of work around finance, etc. And I don't really, I understand it, but in terms of who I am and what I do, I think yes, I could help people, but to try and find a networking as part of that finance world,
Mm.
I don't know. I think I would have to really work hard, really search and be out all the time to try and find that. But I, yeah, like you said, we talked about it before. I have this legacy idea of networking as you've got to go, you've got your label on, and you're on show, and oftentimes you feel that you've got to generate a lifetime's worth of conversation within just like a few seconds, and that can be very daunting. And a bit like you, I'm an overthinker, so I'm worried. It can be silly. Like I have this thing where I used to go to networking, and you go right, people are passing around like hors d'oeuvres or little snacks or something, and then someone comes up to you, and you're midway eating, and
Halfway through eating. Oh,
and
I
I'm
hate
thinking
that.
it's halfway down my chin, or I've got something stuck in my teeth, or someone's just given me something with tuna and onions, and my breath's going to smell. It's going to be just absolute carnage, and I'm like, this is the first time I'm meeting you. But I think again, that's legacy stuff, and I'm conscious of time, so I just I want to sort of say, I think anyone listening to this conversation, like if they've taken what I have from this, is it's about being yourself, working within, understanding yourself, understanding you, bringing that to the world, and that's actually a really good thing. Within some of that, yeah, there's maybe some areas to tighten up, but I feel coming out of this conversation, I feel really good about myself and my journey, and feel quite empowered to actually go, yeah, just lean in a bit more, not lean out and just try and tighten it all up and make it all something that isn't me. And just to the point of networking, that actually makes it much more enjoyable. Like I think anything that I've struggled with, I really dislike admin. But if you can make it enjoyable in a way, either make it a small step, or there's a reward afterwards, or make it fun. If you can find something that aligns with you to do these things, and I know you're very interested in people, we talked about this before, but networking is just a load of people, and you can just, you know, as much as it might be a sensory overload, it is also plays into like a curiosity part. Just see other people, not to judge them, but just to understand, okay, what's going on, a learning experience. Okay, how does this work? And it can be fun. And if we just change our perspective and say, right, okay, because again, from the introverted perspective, you go, right, I'm introverted. Now I'm going to put myself in the middle of a lot of extroverted people. That's that's I don't even know if it was always that way, or it sounds like it certainly isn't that way now. Yeah, you'll have a few maybe extroverted people, which are maybe running the show because they have to present and move things on. But within there, I would suggest there's more introverted people that are in a similar situation. And again, what I've taken from this conversation, people listening or watching this that are starting their own business and, feeling or coming from a place similar to maybe me and, yourself, that actually there is a whole world out there that now feels like ripe for the taking, as in, we've kind of sat in the shadows and felt, oh no, look, these are all for the, A type people, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is there's a huge space there for us to be ourselves, to create business, to connect with people, to help and to build some amazing things. And I honestly are coming away from this really inspired by that. And just to reflect on you as a person, the way that you are able to explain to me how all of these things work in such a great way, using analogies and pictures, because I'm quite a visual person. That I would imagine anyone working with you, you know, really gets a lot from you in just not just, branding, but your awareness, your interest in psychology, your your ability to understand all of these things and navigate. I really feel that there's a place for you helping so many people with their branding, because just in this conversation, I really feel inspired to go, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. And that is because branding can also be, you feel that it can be one of those things that is quite off putting, because you always think like these big branding agencies, you're going to go in there, spend a load of
Mm.
money and then be told what you have to do. Whereas
Yeah.
from our conversation, I felt that you've listened to me, you would understand me, you understand all of this stuff, but it would be matched with who I am and how I am. And it wasn't like you're doing it all wrong or anything. You just like, oh, let's have a look at this. And I love that approach. And I, I truly believe that's how business is going to be done in the future, without
Yeah.
this, scarcity, everything. It's a collaboration more than I know you're going to get like type thing.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's collaboration, and I have to say kindness and empathy. A lot of people don't realize that you need a lot of that when it comes to working with people, be it working with a business or working with an individual. We need a lot more of that in the world, let's be honest.
Yeah, truly. Well, for today, again, we're going way over. Maybe, again, it's not a topic that I've explored. So if people are watching, it goes out on LinkedIn. It's also going to go out on YouTube in a little while. If people want a round two, I think it's such a great topic to explore. If people have got questions, I would encourage them to send them in, or maybe go to you directly. Maybe we can do a round two if there's enough
Yeah.
questions for that. I've absolutely loved it. And again, you're such a warm personality and really, um,
Thank you.
really engaging. And I think that for me, if anyone's watching this, I hope that they get that sense of who you are and, and what you're building, and in such an authentic way. And I really love that. But where is the best place for people to find you? Is that LinkedIn where I found you, or website? Where should they
Yeah,
go?
I'd say LinkedIn is the best way to go. Obviously, I do have a website. I'm still trying to fix it up. But yeah, it's a forever job. But yeah, LinkedIn, just hop in, message, conversation.
Fantastic. Well, Hazel, it was really, real pleasure for me. Yeah, like I say,
Same.
I'm inspired to sort of lean into it a bit more. But yeah, for today, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. It was great chatting. Don't get to chat like this long with a lot of people sometimes.
I'm glad I created the space for you. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Hazel. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's me again. Just a quick note. I'm trying to grow my audience, but in an intentional way, not to go viral, but to be able to bring you more of these conversations because I enjoy doing them. And I think there's a lot of value in what my guests have to share. So if you like what you hear and you're happy to hear about other conversations and learn from those people, then please just click on subscribe. That'll give me some data around the conversations that you like. And then you can add some comments along the way. Always give constructive feedback, and I will always take constructive feedback on board. So, yeah, if you like, please subscribe and click the bell notification so that you do get notified of new episodes. That's it. Thanks very much.